Moved. Okay, you're muted now. And you're in slow-mo.
I have a feeling that's why I was
There.
muted. Yay!
I hear you.
And I'm gonna fix our audio because we may not be transmitting clearly for everyone, or we may still have our lobby music on. Thanks, Twitch people, who are being so patient with us while we figure this out. Just give me 1 second here, and I will get us adjusted in a way that makes a little bit more sense for this screen, because right now you're really little in the very bottom right corner, Osama. But everyone who's tuned in, thanks for joining us. As you can see, Osama's here in the flesh, not just in the Twitter icon, which is really cute.
Thank you.
And you are listening to the GameDev Cafe. So a couple things. We are trying a bit of a new technical setup tonight. So if you guys are wondering why things look different, first of all, because it's different from how we normally do it here, I realize. Also, Osama is joining us as part of our Get to Know GameDev live series. And if you haven't had a chance to see any of this stuff yet, you can tune in to our YouTube channel, which is YouTube/GameDevCafe in the channel section. There's a few videos still up on Twitch, but we're also going to be putting most of these up on GameDevCafe.com with hopefully a little bit more, I guess, info or details for you guys, just in terms of, like what makes some of these people tick and how they got to be who they are. There's always a couple extra questions that we have time to play with at the end that we don't always have time to sort of share with you guys. So that's sort of where you can find that kind of information, GameDevCafe.com. But without further ado, and forgive me for playing around so much with my screens here, I'm probably driving some of you guys crazy, but good old OBS and crop padding. But Osama, hi, thanks for joining us tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. I am friends with you on Facebook, as some people may already know if they happen to watch our feeds, but I know that you recently took on a really cool new job, and I've been following some of your posts, I guess, about some of the cool stuff that you've seen since you've started at Warner Brothers. We'll get to that in a little bit, but for now, I guess for those who may not know you, do you want to just start by introducing yourself, I guess mainly as your role in the game industry, but just also who you are, what makes you tick, what are you all about?
Of course. Okay. So I'll start with the few things that I do. Right now, I just started a role as a senior game designer at Warner Brothers. I can't talk about what project I'm on, but all I could say is that it's a major DC franchise. That's what the website says, so I know I can repeat that. And as a huge comic book fan, and I'll prove it in a sec, it's an incredibly exciting opportunity, and the people there are wonderful, and I'm incredibly happy. It's still a honeymoon period, but I think I'm still going to continue to be happy. So it's my second week there.
Nice.
Before that, I was at Minority Media as a senior game designer, which is a small indie company most famous for making Papueño, which is a game about alcoholism. And before that, I was at Ubisoft, where I worked on For Honor, which is an awesome combat game. And before that, I was at GE, where I made games for airplanes. And before that, I was at Gameloft for most of my career, where I worked on pretty much every game that Gameloft Montreal made for 6 or 7 years. So I've been in the industry actually almost 10 years. It's going to be 10 years this November.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been absolutely. Also, in addition to that, I'm the coordinator of the video game program at Dawson College. So I created the independent game design program. I used to be a teacher in it, but right now I sometimes substitute teach. But mostly I'm in charge of creating schedules, hiring teachers, doing all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Also, I'm the co-founder of a small indie hobbyist company called Magic Pants, where we work on a game right now called Heroes Never Lose, and we're exploring a second game. I'm not going to talk about it much more yet, but soon. And Heroes Never Lose is kind of the proof that I love comic books and superheroes, because it's a superhero-themed action puzzler. It's available on Steam now, and we're going to work on moving it, porting it to consoles in the near future. And also, me and my partner Salim Rashad were co-founders of the Montreal Independent Games Festival. We're going to have another iteration this November. We haven't announced the date yet. It's about 17th or 18th of November, and this is the third year that we run the festival, and that's actually where I met a lot of the Toronto people. So they came and they presented their game, and I love Toronto people because of that, and before that, but especially because of that. Yeah. So those are pretty much the four things I do. So game designer / educator / event planner / indie dev. So I do all of that. How I got into games is a really strange story. Well, to me,
Do tell.
to me at least. Okay, so the not too long version is I studied political science and I worked as a shipping agent for a company called Inchcape, where I used to go on ships and meet captains and do customs paperwork.
Oh, cool. Weird.
Yeah, it was
cool.
I
Probably
had a
not as cool
love-hate
as it sounds.
relationship with it. The cool parts were really cool, and I traveled to a lot of cities. So I got to see a lot, meet a lot of interesting people from all over the world, and I absolutely hated the paperwork part. So yeah, I did that for about a year, and then I went back to doing graphic and web design and odd jobs on the side. Also, I was customer service, technical support, whatever paid the bills. But at the same time, I was learning graphic and web design. I learned ActionScript, I learned Flash, and I used to make for fun levels for video games. That ended up being a portfolio. I started making little Flash games, and I applied for a job at every video game company possible after working on a portfolio for about 6 months, and I didn't get any callbacks. So 6 months passed, and then I got a call back from Gameloft, and they wanted a poker expert.
Oh.
And I said, "Oh well, I poker. I'm an expert."
I can do that.
Yeah, I can do that. I play poker with my friends all the time. And they said, "Well, okay, you have a test in 2 days." They're like, "Oh crap, okay." So I didn't sleep for 2 days. I bought 5 poker books, and I became an expert.
Smart.
I passed the test.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. I passed the test, and I had major imposter syndrome because, for obvious reasons, I was an imposter, literally. But years later, I became friends with my boss who hired me, and he's like, and I told him, okay, I have to confess, I'm not a poker expert. I kind of faked it. He's like, yeah, of course you did. We didn't expect you to be a poker expert. We wanted to see if you're able to learn and apply yourself to learn new things. Because after the poker game, what are we going to do with you? We want you to be able to pick up other kinds of games. Like my second game was a pool game. It was Midnight Pool for the Nintendo Wii.
Right.
So if I was just a poker expert, they'd be done with me by then. So I had imposter syndrome for years and years and years for no reason at all. Like they actually just expected someone to do whatever it takes to pass the test and figure it out, right?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Trial by fire, I guess.
Pretty much. Got my opportunity teaching at Dawson because a teacher dropped out, and they wanted someone to teach a Dragon Age engine.
Oh, cool.
Class started in 3 weeks. They couldn't find someone who already knew it, so they had to find someone crazy enough to try to learn a thing in 3 weeks to teach it. And I was that person. So.
Very cool. All right,
Yeah.
so practical.
So I hustled my way into everything I've ever done. Yeah,
cool.
So the official title in the industry is hustler.
Hustler. But that's a legitimate hustle, if you're doing it. Sure, you're crunching a little bit, I guess, is the only difference. But that's sort of how most people get used to any kind of application, right? They just set out, they do their research, they dig around a little, and hopefully learn along the way. Is that something that you've overcome then at this point? Like, do you still feel like an imposter?
Well, I think it never goes away for anybody ever, because I've been speaking to people who have 20 years of experience, and they'll still admit that sometimes they have imposter syndrome. So the truth is, everyone's an imposter at something. I mean, nobody can be good at everything. So the way to really overcome it on your day-to-day is to be transparent about what you're good at and what you're not good at. Don't fake the funk. You don't have to. Just tell people, I'll figure this out. I don't know it. And then a lot of times your team members will appreciate that and they'll step up. So you won't be letting them down. They hired you because there's something that you do know. So you don't have to lie about the things you don't know.
That's very true. Do you find that any one of your roles, because like you have a few hats that you wear, is any one more difficult in terms of overcoming imposter syndrome? Or like, because I used to be a teacher way back in another life, and yeah, there was never a day where I didn't have like this moment of internal like, oh my god, I can't believe they're letting me teach kids, even though like I was a pretty good teacher. So for me, like that has always been sort of the more imposter syndrome moment rather than working with adults or peers. But how about for you?
Oh, that's a very good question. I've never given it any thought, to be honest. What do I feel
Probably
more of an imposter
good.
in?
Doesn't bother you
Uh,
enough to worry about it.
no, it's more like I feel I'm equally an imposter in everything. It's about even keel. I mean, like I said, I've hustled my way into every job I've ever had. So I don't know, to be honest. Probably every time I start a new job, I just feel like an especially big imposter at that for a
Yeah.
while until, yeah. So, I mean, I've been doing the teaching thing for a while. The festivals, we're running on our third year. Um, but, the new job at Warner, I guess now this is the moment where I'm the biggest imposter, but I'm doing well. And my teammates are really patient and it's not stopping me on my day-to-day. So all the way
You
around, it
handle it
drives me.
well. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
exactly.
okay.
That's interesting. Is there anything then about, I mean, I think people that, well, they probably don't know everything that's involved in running a festival, but that role sort of makes sense to a lot of people, and an educator is something that a lot of people are familiar with. But I guess as a game designer, is that something that you find people don't fully understand if they're not in that role or in the industry? Like, what's weird about that role that people just don't necessarily know if they're not in it?
It's such a hybrid role. It's really hard to explain to people, and it differs from project to project so much, and it differs from company to company so much that you can't explain it in a phrase. You have to pretty much tell people specifically what you're working on then, and many times you can't. So my mom still thinks I play games for a living, and that's okay. I've
All
come
our
to terms
moms
with
do.
that. Yeah,
None of them
pretty much.
understand.
Yeah, and technically she's right. I spend a lot of my day playing what passes for a game until it becomes a game, but
Yeah.
that's just a part of it, right? And some
Yeah.
people think it's akin to being like a movie director, but
Mm.
you actually are a lot of times more hands-on. Like that's more of a game director type position.
Right.
But yeah, there's some truth to that as well. And some people think you're just programming it. Sometimes you're scripting or programming a bit as well. So nobody's really wrong, whatever they assume.
Hmm.
But nobody can nail it, and it's different from person to person. Only a game designer will understand the spectrum of what is game design, right?
Right,
Uh,
right.
yeah, so definitely difficult to explain to people.
Is there any one element then that you particularly enjoy or that you feel is sort of your, like your jam?
I really like jumping headfirst into something I absolutely know nothing about. So give me, like, whenever I'm on a project and someone says nobody on the team knows how to do this, I'm just itching because I'm hoping that
Snap it
that's what
up.
I'm going to. Yeah, I want to be assigned to that thing that I don't know how to do. I might fail at it. I'm not saying I'm going to thrive in this situation, but I love adding things to my repertoire.
That's a great
Um,
energy to have on a team too, especially
Thank
if
you.
not everyone is quite as willing or eager to fail. It's a risky way to be, but I think it usually bears out some kind of reward, especially if you stick with it.
Absolutely. Actually, it's
Clearly.
funny. I think it's a mixture of just my personality and also a mixture of starting off at Gameloft.
Hmm.
We worked on such short projects, 3 to 4 months at the beginning, and eventually they got much bigger. So each project I'd specialize as something different. At one point, I was doing level designs on a game called Modern Combat. Another time, I was doing crash cameras and story. Sorry. Game progression on Asphalt, which is a racing
Oh,
game.
okay.
Then I did like cinematics on Gangstar, and then I did narrative design on Dungeon Hunter, and I
Like
did
the whole
AI for a
gamut.
poker
Geez.
game. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like I think I got so used to jumping onto it keeps things interesting and exciting. So I think it's really my starting off my career at Gameloft gave me the opportunity to try my hands at different things, so I don't get scared off by new things.
That's
At the same
interesting.
time, it also makes me more of a generalist than a specialist, which is totally okay, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I think I mean, that's not for everyone necessarily, but certainly it works out if you're of that ilk. And if you're sort of driven by learning new things, then
Mhm.
you probably want to stay a generalist, right?
Yeah,
No, that's
pretty
really
much.
interesting. Is this would you say at this point in your career, have you made it? Like, are you successful? Is there ever any kind of I don't know, I guess security is kind of the word I'm looking for, but do you ever feel like, okay, like this is it, like I'm in my element?
Is it arrogant to admit that I do feel like
I
I've
don't think
made it?
so.
Yeah, I'm
Somebody
actually
has to feel
extremely.
successful sometime,
I
right?
suppose so.
It's not a
I
crime.
I don't know, for the last couple of years, I've had incredible opportunities. I've been able to pick where I choose. I chose Warner because I wanted to work there. Uh, I choose the people I work with. So I think that's really the measure of success, when you're able to say, this is where I want to be now. And that's where I want to be now. I mean, I want to organize a festival, so I organize a festival. I want to teach a class, so I teach a class. It's that
Yeah.
simple. I'm not saying every opportunity is open to me, but definitely enough right now that I would say that, yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful and very happy. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
are there more things I want to achieve? Absolutely. My bucket list is huge, but I'm never going to finish all that. I don't have enough years of my life, unless they figure out how to make me immortal. I'm never going to be able to do all that anyway. So I'm going
I
to
was gonna
be.
say you're juggling a lot, so you're probably already yeah, handling more things than most. But I think, when the roles fit you well, and as you say, you kind of have like an affinity for them. No, like, success is something you should totally own, even if it's
Thank
like a
you.
faux pas in this industry sometimes.
Absolutely.
Shh, don't say it too loud. Um, have there been any and I don't know if they're necessarily unique to you or maybe unique to your role, but have you faced any challenges along the way that you would say are sort of unique to your own experience and that, maybe other people might benefit from hearing?
I actually periodically give this lecture about the how I learned to make games with my kids,
Oh,
and actually
okay.
I learned a lot from that. I don't know if you heard about it, but it went on. I posted a video of it on my Facebook for a
Oh,
little while
nice. We'll have
ago.
to link it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to find the link. I'd have to scroll far back, but I gave it at Comic Con. It just wasn't recorded,
Oh, cool.
and of course it's an evolving story. So every time I give it, I add the more recent games that we've worked on and the like. So I think that's. I don't know if that how unique that is, but I mean, I did speak to a lot of game designers who are like, "Oh, I haven't started that with my kids yet," or "Oh, I would love to do that." So it's not as common as other things, and I've learned a lot. Um, Learning how to teach my kids to make games has made me not only a better teacher but a better game designer.
Mm.
It's given me a better approach to pitching things and explaining things from a point of view. Because if you
Yeah.
could explain anything to a kid, you could explain it to anybody,
I
right?
was gonna say
And
they're very vicious in their
yeah,
opinions sometimes. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and
and they don't necessarily have the attention span, or
that's it.
yeah, they don't need to flatter you.
Absolutely, you have to get to the point right away, and you have to be extremely prepared. And yeah, there are
Interesting.
no second chances with kids. If their first impression of a thing is often going to be their only impression of it for a long time, because if they don't like it, especially.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a good talk. If you do want to link it later, if I do find the link,
Cool.
or just come catch me at a future Comic Con and come see it live.
And is that something that you are getting sort of more involved with now in your games career, like focusing more on not necessarily kid-friendly games, but like the elements of, younger players and what they might be looking for?
Actually, not in my career, but definitely in my day-to-day life. Like
Nice.
we always
Okay.
starting different video games. It's just part of it. We make card games and board games as well, but we are
Oh, cool.
constantly either updating or working on new. Like the most recent game we made was about a month ago, where we made a maze game, and I incorporated going to Bureau en Gros, which is like Staples,
Yeah.
to print out to print out like a big the board pieces, and we took pictures of ourselves and we
Oh,
made ourselves into
awesome.
little pieces and things like that. So which is amazing, because we could get to carry those pieces over to the next board game that we make, and my kids dressed up in costumes, which is a thing we don't really associate with gaming, but came up with the idea because one of my students did it for their student project, and I'm like, wow, that's
Oh,
brilliant. You're
nice.
in your game. I want my kids to be in their game. So I'm constantly thinking about it, and we're constantly working on it, but uh, directly into my career, no, I don't think I've actually ever made a game targeted, like professionally targeted
Hmm.
for children. But that's an interesting
Interesting.
question. I would definitely be willing to do that one day. Right?
I think there's more
Yeah.
people probably like yourself and maybe a little bit older too who are in that generation where, their parents didn't necessarily love games, but they did, and
Yeah.
now they have kids that they can influence and mold and,
Actually,
get lots of cool ideas from. So I feel like
absolutely.
it's something that I'm seeing a bit more, and like you said, it's being explored maybe more as a hobby, but I feel like eventually the industry, I think, will embrace this in a really big way.
Absolutely. Actually,
Yeah.
I have ideas for games that I want to make for kids. It's just a matter of time. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah, how
Yeah,
many hours are there in a day, right?
exactly. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
but that's really cool that you get your kids involved, and it's sort of I guess it sounds like you're able to maintain sort of your own personal interests and career path in games that might not involve your kids, but also at the same time dedicate a lot of time to working with them and getting them keen on it. Is it something that you have made a focus of sort of your family time? Like, are games a really big part of your family because of that?
Yes, yes. It's
Cool.
because it's what I know, so I'm able to teach through games, and
Right, right.
yeah, and learn about my kids from them. So,
Ah,
uh,
so cute.
thank you.
No, it really is. I used to teach very young kids, so
Yes.
yeah, gameplay was a huge part of the learning experience at that age. So
Absolutely.
it's something that I always sort of pine for, especially as kids get older. It's like I see, those creative types who it's like, man, like you would be perfect for designing this or coming up with characters for that.
Yeah, a lot of the artist
Interesting.
friends that I know, their parents are artists. Not everyone, of course, but many of them, and they're interested and they're very good at it because their parents fostered that. And I'm not saying that I want my kids necessarily to make games, but I mean, you never know. Maybe it's even a career path for them in the future.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of an exercise in creative, I guess,
Yeah,
logistics.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very interesting. I guess coming back to yourself, is there any game that has had a really significant impact on you? And there can be more than one, because that's a very difficult question to answer with one
Yeah,
game title. But something that's either very memorable from your childhood or just something that sort of has stuck with you for a long time.
actually, I do remember the first game that made me feel emotional and very
Hmm.
emotional. It was in North America. It was Final Fantasy 2, but it was Final Fantasy
Ah,
4.
nice.
And I do remember actually buying the game and absolutely hating it at
Oh.
first because I had never played an RPG before and I didn't know what to expect. And
Especially that style. It's a little like
yes,
rigid, weird. Yeah.
exactly. And like 11-year-old me did not appreciate that I had to read for a video game.
What?
Uh,
What is this tomfoolery? Yeah, that's
I
pretty
love to
funny.
read books, but that was a separate thing.
It's not why you
But
bought the game, but it is a game
exactly.
that's written. It has some compelling writing in it from what I
Oh,
remember. Yeah.
oh yeah. And I remember actually giving it a chance because I buy a game every month or two back then, so
Hmm.
I was stuck with whatever I already had. And I don't remember when I started liking it because I was just playing it because it's all I had. But I do remember when I couldn't stop playing it. There's when there were two characters, Pullum and Porum, who were twins. I don't know if you know anything about this game at all, but at one point
Vague
they said,
recollections because I did play it, but it's such a long time ago, right?
well,
Cool.
they're these magician twins, and at one point they sacrificed themselves by turning themselves into statues to save the world. And I didn't want it to happen, and I didn't want to move forward. And they were like, "Okay, now we're statues. The bad thing is stopping. Get into the airship." And I didn't want to move. I didn't want to leave them
Leave
behind.
them
And
behind. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, no, don't do it. Come back. We'll find a different way. And I'm trying to find a different way,
You
and
don't
of
have to
course, it's not working.
sacrifice.
And so that was the first time I felt strong emotions towards pixelated characters. Definitely not the last. I get, like you said, I could
Hmm.
list tons of games. Like the most recent one, the most recent game that made me feel something is Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Um, I don't, and the DLC is spectacular. Oh my god.
Mm.
I don't have much time to play games these days compared to before. I play about maximum an hour a night before I go to bed.
That's
Um,
not bad.
yeah,
Some people might say that's pretty good, but I hear you. It's
it's
it's it's hard, especially depending on the game.
Yeah,
That's not always
it's some
enough.
games I just can't play because an hour a night you don't get the full experience. And when I say
Yeah.
maximum an hour a night, on average I play maybe half an hour before
Yeah.
going to bed. So I can't finish many games. I don't have a lot of time. A lot of times I lose interest in a game once I see the game loop, and I'm like, okay, I get what this is now. I'm not going to grind. So I'll
Right.
just like watch a video to see the ending and be done with it. But
Hmm.
Last of Us I finished on PlayStation 3 and then on PlayStation 4 and then the DLC, which speaks volumes. I don't remember the last time I played a game and finished it twice. Um,
Interesting.
it was out of this world incredible. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved everything. It was my game of the decade, probably.
Oh, that's good
So,
to hear because I'm kind of sitting on it. It's one of those games that, it hasn't been spoiled for me yet, which is amazing,
yeah.
kind of. Um, so great, great to hear. But I hear that from a lot of people, so that's a really
Yeah.
interesting choice. Are there any sort of casual games that you're into right now then, since you're may not? be into like the big RPG titles?
There are games that I play casually. What do you mean by casual gaming exactly?
I guess casually meaning something that you could play easily in an hour or less a night.
Okay, I play a lot of Overwatch.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Yeah, Overwatch is a fun one.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of it's taken up my MOBA time. Like I have like the brain dead game that you play on autopilot, and I used to have so many that I pick from. Since Overwatch came out, it's pretty much been monopolizing my time.
Favorite character main?
Pretty much everybody.
Everybody. Good.
Yeah. No, my favorite mode is the mystery mode. So you die and you're somebody else and you don't have any control over it.
You get to kind of shuffle through, yeah. Actually, it's better because you get sort of skilled on everyone. I mean,
and you don't take it seriously either.
Yeah.
Because if you do well, you did well. And if you didn't do well, they give you a bad character or the comp was bad. So
yeah, it wasn't my fault. Move on to the next one. Psh, no thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good attitude for sure. Yeah, Overwatch is a really fun
character,
one.
It's usually Roadhog.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I'm a tank main, so Roadhog,
serious
Diva,
character. I was gonna say, it says something about your personality, I'm sure.
Thank you. Roadhog, Diva, and Winston, what does that say about me? They're very different.
There's got to be a personality test out there for that. Oh, funny. Yeah, no, that's a good choice. I guess, when it comes to people who work in games, and again, this is probably a question where there's a lot of people that you can think of to answer, but do you have any role models, or I don't know if heroes, like too big of a word, but just people who in general you look up to or you try to sort of emulate in your career?
Yes. This might be a strange answer, but I think the person I look up to the most is Rami Ismail. Do you know? He's an indie game designer, developer for Vlambeer.
Yeah.
And it's mostly about how he carries himself. Like, I mean, he's Muslim and I'm Muslim as well. And I feel he embodies the best aspects of our religion.
Oh, nice.
He's very open and transparent and honest and all the good things. So even though he's technically younger than me, I think he paved the way to show me how to be a Muslim in the industry and how to use my religion, the values that I learned from it in a positive way.
Oh, nice.
And I've had the pleasure of meeting him several times, and each time he's like the only person in the industry I swoon over. I mean, I've met a lot of my heroes. I've met people who I absolutely love, like Chris Avalon or Tim Schafer, but the only person I stutter with is Rami Ismail.
There's always one. There's always one. And yes. Rami is he's a really inspirational, yes. I just follow him on Twitter. I don't know him personally, but he is a very inspirational speaker. And I agree. He does sort of promote, I think a really positive attitude in the industry, and again, sort of a very open attitude in the industry, yes. which is not always the loudest voice in the room, and it's nice that he's up and coming. That's a great choice. Interesting.
He's so humble.
Considering his success, like it's
exactly. Yeah. He came to Montreal maybe like 4 years ago, or that was the first time I met him.
Oh, nice.
And he wasn't even a guest speaker. He just came to a video game event, and everyone was like, "Hey, Rami's here!" And then he just went into the crowd, and then one of the devs on the stage, their game wasn't working, so he ran up and he took their USB key and he plugged it into his laptop and he helped them debug it, and nice. He had it up and running, and we're like, well, who the hell is this guy? Like at the time,
our hero.
Yeah, this is amazing.
The
show was
hero. Going. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I could gush over him all night. Like when I went to GDC in San Francisco, I met my good friend Dominique Mercure, who basically knows he's down 2D on like he's kind of a famous person on the interwebs, and he knows like all the indies, and all the indies know him. So when we were at GDC, he's like, "So who would you like to meet?" I'm like, "Rami." He's like, "Oh," and he went and he introduced me to Rami again, and then he's like, "Who else?" I'm like, "No, that's it. I'm good. My GDC is complete."
That says a lot. Yeah, that was my bucket list right there. Yeah, oh, that's interesting. Oh, very cool. Is there anyone that you are sort of maybe working with or working alongside right now who you sort of feel deserves a shout?
Oh my God, you're gonna hate my answer. You're really absolutely gonna hate it. But it's my boss, Jeff Eleanor.
You're allowed to give a shout out to your boss.
Okay, but it's
your
because
new
like
boss?
It sounds like I'm looking up, but it's not true. Actually, that's the thing. He was my boss when I was at Ubisoft.
Oh,
and,
okay, cool.
Yeah, and I absolutely wanted to work with him again. He's like the best boss I've ever had. He's incredibly competent and very intelligent. He knows exactly what he's doing. And when he went to Warner, I really wanted to go back and work with him again. So that's the
cool.
truth. And I don't like. I know it sounds like sucking up. I don't care really. Like, I mean, he's
No,
just a
good
great guy.
people make such a difference, like
Oh
in
my God.
every aspect of your job and your experience and your mental health.
Absolutely. And
No,
you spend
there's
more
people I
time
would
with,
follow, yeah.
yeah, you spend more time with your coworkers and your family, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
many times, most of the time, you can't choose your family, but you could choose your coworkers. So,
Mhm.
well, usually. So
Very
why not,
cool.
right?
Well, congratulations. I'm really glad that
Thank
you've
you.
sort of landed in this ideal role. And I know you can't talk too much about what you're doing, but I'm excited to hear more about it whenever you are ready. I
Don't worry, I'll
guess
be sharing all the information as soon as I can.
I was gonna say, I guess we'll have to circle back. Are there any events or engagements that you're going to be at in the near future? Obviously November
Yes,
for the next Independent Games Festival, but anything
exactly.
else?
Yes, I'm actually going to be at MIGS. I'm giving a
Oh,
talk
right, Megs,
in
cool, yeah,
December. Yeah. So
sweet,
I have a panel. Oh, sorry, not a panel, a lecture, a talk.
awesome. And is that
Yes.
sort of some of the themes that we've already talked about today, or something
It,
different?
actually, it's representing. It's basically a talk about how I didn't title it yet, so I don't know what it's going to be called, but it's
Working
about
title.
positive depictions of Muslims in video games. It's
Oh,
basically
very
like
cool.
a point list of how what to do and what not to do, and it's not a don't do this type talk. It's very
I
laid
just hope
back
you have a lot of
conversation.
positive examples to put in your PowerPoint.
I think I don't have a lot, and that's why the talk's important.
That's true. That's exactly the
Yeah,
point, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Gotcha. No, that's really interesting. And I think, for people who are sort of tuning in or who might watch this later, we're both based in Canada. You in Montreal, me in Toronto, and we still have our issues up here. But people may not appreciate that, this is a very serious issue that the whole entire globe sort of needs to care about right now. I think the independent games industry alone is sort of sensitive to inclusion and diversity on a bit of a deeper level right now. But for anyone tuning in from anywhere else in the world, just because we're Canadian, we definitely still care about and obviously keep this top of mind. Someone like myself being a female in the industry, I'm often asked for my opinion. I'm sure as a Muslim and any kind of minority in the industry at all, you're always sort of singled out for this. So I'm really happy that people like yourself are willing to step up and take it on. It's not
Thank you. I
probably
really
not an
appreciate
easy
that.
talk to put together, but again, a really, really important one. And it'll open some really great dialogue, just as we try to do here.
Yes,
I
you're
guess,
doing a great job.
well, we try. Yeah, it's been really interesting to get feedback from our audience about what they want to hear from people like you. And as much as it's nice to hear about cool big games that are coming out, or like, what's the secret little project that's coming up, ultimately people just want to know like what makes a game dev tick, and like why do people want to sacrifice their lives and carve out most of their daylight hours to do this kind of work, and some of their nighttime hours too. I guess, as a parting thought, I don't think I prepared you for this question, but I feel safe asking it because it's not
Okay,
really that difficult. But do you
okay.
have any words of wisdom, or, if that's too heavy, maybe just insight for people who are trying to balance a lot of things right now and who may not be, like yourself, they may not have put in the 10 years to get to a place where they feel successful. They may still be in the grind. Do you have any words of advice for people who are just juggling the family, the game dev, the career? How do you do it? How do you get through it?
Well, you have no choice but to prioritize, and hopefully, family is going to be first, yourself included, of
Hmm.
course. So make sure that everything that you do, you see that that's your ultimate goal. Don't
Hmm.
take on a job within reason if you're sacrificing that, and then everything else will fall into place because you're going to make the right moves. So you might like everything else is just a layer on top of you doing what's right for you and for your family.
Absolutely. Good advice. Good
So,
advice.
I mean, I have a very uh, packed schedule, but I don't sacrifice the time with my kids. It's off limits.
Yeah.
And if I make an exception, it's a big deal. Like I'll make an
Yeah.
exception on the weekend that has Comic Con, but Comic Con is once a year, for example, or if I
And
can
it's
take a
Comic-Con,
trip.
not
Yeah,
joking. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But even when I organize my festival, my kids are there with me. If you go to like the Montreal Independent Games Festival Facebook page and look at the pictures, half the pictures of my kids are there on my lap or somewhere.
And
Whenever
I've
it's
seen some
possible.
of them. They're really cool. I mean, they're not just
Thank
cute
you.
kids, like they're really cool, and they have some
Thank you.
cosplay chops. It's no
Yes,
joke.
yes.
Probably thanks to their dad. But that's a
Thank
really
you.
important message. And your broader family too. I mean, you mentioned
Of
having
course.
mentors who you really enjoyed and you followed, and I think the community at large benefits in general from you sort of being involved in your energy. I'll tell you, I won't tell you who said this. I'll tell you privately, just so I don't want to embarrass him in public. But one of the reasons that I was really eager to interview you was someone was characterizing you as, a member of the game dev community. And they told me a little anecdote, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but basically they mentioned that you came into the room at a conference and there was lots of people there, and your way of introducing yourself was something to the effect of, I love games, I may not know your game, but I want to get to know your game so I can love your game too. Something
Oh my
like
God.
that. And it's just like,
Practically word for word.
there you go. See, not bad. I'm glad. It's like pretty late here. That's not too bad. But that kind of positive energy is something that it's not rare. There's lots of it in
Yeah.
this industry, but it kind of gets overshadowed sometimes by other issues that just sometimes rise to the surface. And I think maintaining that positivity and sort of just that ethic about supporting the community and being that force is really important. And I was really eager to make sure that we sort of talked to someone who was
Thank
well
you.
known for that.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say I'm well known, but thank you. I'll take it.
You may not realize it, but I'm sure that's part of why you've been so successful. And I'm really glad that we were able to talk to you tonight. Thanks so much for your time and just for sharing some of your wisdom with us. I'll
Anytime.
come back
Thank you
and
very
bug
much
you
for
about
having me.
your new gig sometime soon, though.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be on.
Of course. And for anyone else tuning in, like I said, we will have this up on YouTube after the fact, so you'll be able to watch the entire interview with Osama. Also at GameDevCafe.com. If you have any questions that we didn't get to tonight and you feel that they're really pertinent, you can also tweet us at the GameDev Cafe. And we'll see if Osama's willing to take them. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm Karina. This is Osama. And you've been listening to the GameDev Cafe.
Peace.
Bye.